There we go. Hey, welcome everybody. This is E Professor, and today we get to talk with Katie Lance, social media stud as far as I am concerned. She has been out there for years. I noticed her probably 3-4 years ago. I'm sure she was doing a lot longer than that, but I noticed about 3-4 years ago talking to the real estate industry, talking to us about how to become socially smart, and it's very cool. She is the CEO and co-founder of Katie Lance Consulting, nationally known keynote speaker. Past 10 years, she has been working with real estate agents to help them get smarter and how to use this, and has been recognized by a lot of companies, Inman being one of them. And really, I think a powerhouse, and I think very lucky to get her on today. So welcome, Katie. What did I miss? What did I not hit? What kudo did I not give you?
That was great. I think you hit everything, Justin. I definitely appreciate being here today. It's always fun to sit down and talk, at least virtually, about all things social media. So thanks for having me.
Well, very welcome, and I'm glad we could find the time for this. So, I'm going to start off with a simple question, and maybe we'll get tougher afterwards. But I think we all know social media is an important part of our job today. It's not only here to stay; it's here to play, right? So, let me ask you, how important is it for today for a real estate agent to be doing what we're doing on social media today?
I think it's really important, I mean, especially now with this kind of crazy year we've all had, I think it's more important than ever before. We're not face to face with as many people as we were in the past. We're not going to the holiday parties or, hanging out at our kids' sporting events as much as maybe we have in the past. And so I definitely think it's important. And I think it's also more important than ever before to be authentic, and to show up. I think, in the past we've seen a lot of folks, not just in real estate, but other industries who kind of said, well, gosh, maybe I should just automate this or, push a button and have everything done for me. And we really saw, especially this past year, the importance of showing up and being there. And, social media is social. So it's
Yeah.
definitely important. You shouldn't be on it all day. You don't need to spend all day hanging out on Facebook, but having a strategy is really important.
Well, I'm glad you said that because it's always been a big irk of mine since day one. Going to the conferences, we're getting close to conference year, right? We're getting close. NAR just had their first one. We're going to start seeing all the big conventions. I'm assuming it's going to be virtual.
Yeah.
But we're going to see those. But when you went to those in the past, you had all these companies with a good heart sitting there saying, we can automate that for you. We can automate that for you. We can automate that for you. And I'm going, well, okay, if you're going to automate that for 40,000 agents that are in the room today, how many people see the same thing?
Exactly. Exactly.
And go for it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, I think, in your mind, it sounds like a great idea, but then when you really start to kind of unpack it, it's, it almost looks like the lights are on, but nobody's home, when you see that. So,
Well, and that's a lot of truth, right? I mean, and today we can see that a lot right now, right? It's the building with the, it's a closed bar that still has the neon light flashing, but it's dead inside, right? Nothing's going on. So yeah, and I think I agree completely. I think authentic is the biggest part of this, and that's what you hear more often than not. Is you just got to be you. I mean, if you're funny, great. If you're not, don't try to be something you're not to be out there, because that's what I hear a lot. You got to be funny. You got to be entertaining. Well, entertaining comes at so many levels.
yeah. It's more
So
important to be true to yourself, right? I mean, you can see through it, a mile away if someone's not really being true to who they are. And I think it goes to, what do people resonate with on social media? And for some people, it is things that are funny. And if that's you, that's great. But there's also other things. I mean, it could be things that are poignant, or it could be things that are really interesting or educational, or some people resonate with stories. And so it doesn't just have to be one size fits all.
Well, I always say it this way. If you look at your friends around you, not everyone's the class clown. Not everyone's the serious person, right? Not everyone is the professor, right? Your group is collective in nature. So don't worry about it. You're going to attract people who you're going to attract. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, obviously it's just hugely important. But the trick now becomes, we've decided it's got to be authentic. So the automation, quote unquote, has gone away. I mean, not really. We can always use it in tandem. We can use combos. So how do we manage this today, right? I mean, for me, I'll be honest with you. I'm doing this podcast. That's my way of getting out to the realtors to talk to them, to do this kind of thing. You do this very similar stuff. And That's one way of doing this, but how are the realtors going to get out to their clients without spending 5 hours doing this stuff every day?
Yeah. Well, I think it's smart. It's smart that you're doing, this type of content. We talked a little bit about this before we went on the air. As much as I love social media is rented ground, and we don't own it. And so I really think it's important, whether you're a coach or consultant or a realtor or whatever your profession is, to really think about, is there some assets that you could create that you own that go with you wherever you go? So things like podcast content, video content, blog content, your email database, all of which are really, really important. And I agree with you. I don't think people should spend all day or hours and hours, sitting down creating content. And so one thing we really recommend is, I think a great place to start for agents is to start to brainstorm what questions they get asked all the time. If you can really sit down and take out a piece of paper and a pen and even think about who have you worked with in the past 6 to 12 months, write down a list of who you've worked with in the last 6 to 12 months. And then right next to their name, you might write down, what are some questions or topics that came up in conversation, right? What are some things that came up that they had questions about that came up? And pretty quickly, you'll come up with a pretty robust list. And that's a great place to start. I would also say, too, if you're doing any kind of content, especially, video content or podcast content, if possible, I try to get in the habit of batching my content. So, if I'm going to sit down, do my hair and makeup and record one video like this as an example, I'm not just doing this today. I'm going to do this. I'm going to record some other videos. Like, you get yourself into kind of a mode of batching, just like you would when you make phone calls or you write thank you notes. You get yourself into kind of a mode, and I think those two things can make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because that's what I do a lot of. Right now, I am probably several weeks ahead of schedule for some of this stuff.
It's great.
Um, and the way I've always explained to realtors, and I'm hoping you'd agree, I'm thinking you would, is we teach realtors all the time. You got to schedule prospecting time every day, every week, every month, right? You got to schedule this stuff. Well, this is just part of it, right? This is just part of that business cycle. So if you can get every Monday for 2 hours and you're just content creation, then go do it. And it's probably better that way anyways, because at least the juices are flowing the right way at the right time. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting down, okay, now I got to think what to say. Okay, now my hour's up and I don't know, I don't have anything written. I got to do that all over again tomorrow.
Hmm.
So I love the batching concept. I think that is huge.
And like you said, scheduling some time. We have a lot of folks we work with who set aside time, a couple hours a week, um, which can sound like a long period of time. But when you get yourself into a rhythm, if you set aside a couple hours a week, there's a lot you can do. You could sit down, you could record 4 or 5 videos, you could schedule some of your content, and then you could also repurpose, which is one of my favorite things that I love to do. If you've got one video, don't just share that video once. Share it today, share it in a few days, maybe get it transcribed. You could turn it into a blog post. It could become an Instagram story. You could really repurpose that. And by giving yourself just a couple hours every week, it gives you that time to do some of that, and also to show up and to, not just post content for the sake of content, but engage with people and build those relationships online, which is important. Oh, I just lost your audio. I don't know if you muted yourself.
Nope. Thank you. I did. I did. And the nice thing
Sorry.
about this is that's going to stay in the system because I want people to learn that mistakes happen. And hey, that's what happens.
There you go.
Be true to who you are.
Exactly. Be authentic.
Well, and again, we were talking offline, and I did it because I was starting to rock back and forth, and it was squeaking. I didn't want to squeak over top of you talking. Um, so I'm glad you said that because I think that's always the big thing right now. I think we think at all times that the material has to be quote unquote fresh, right?
Hmm.
And there's a term out there called evergreen, which I think is kind of some of the things that you're talking about in this regards, where the material can, if you say it right, if I'm wishing you happy 4th of July, okay, you get once a year.
Right.
But, if I'm talking about staging your home, or if I'm talking about prepping your front yard for curb appeal, well, that's universal and that's going to be endless.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when you are repurposing, talk to me about what you are referring to as far as repurposing. Are you talking, that kind of content? Or are you talking even beyond that?
Yeah, I am a big believer in creating kind of a library of evergreen content. or timeless content. For anyone listening who may not be familiar with that term, evergreen, it's just this idea, like you said, of creating something that's valuable not just today, but it's valuable 3, 6, 12 months from now. And that doesn't mean that some of your content won't be timely. There's a lot of agents who maybe every Monday do a Monday market update, or there's agents right now who are doing content around, COVID and keeping people safe and things like that. And that's really timely. That, hopefully won't be needed a year from now, right? We'll keep our fingers crossed. But there's other content that is really, timeless. Or could be around things like moving, top 20 tips for moving, or biggest mistakes you see when people move, or the biggest questions every first time a home buyer asks me, or who pays for what, why should I pay for staging, like all these sort of timeless topics. What's really great about that is not only are you creating content that's really relevant for social media, but you're also building this really robust content library, which is so valuable in so many ways. For example, if you're putting some of this content up on YouTube, that's going to help when you get Googled, when people start searching for a realtor in your local area. It's also going to help in these one-to-one conversations where maybe you get a lead who was referred by somebody else, or you get a lead to your website and you're in an email conversation. It's really powerful to say, hey, in addition to X, Y, and Z, here's a couple videos we did about this subject. This might help as well. And again, it kind of just really helps with that, kind of know, like, and trust factor. It helps build your credibility, and I think it's such a win-win. And to your point of repurposing, one of the things we like to do is think about, if you're going to put out a video, as an example. I'll just use video because I think video is one of the most powerful mediums. If you're putting out a video, let's say once a week, are there maybe 4 or 5 things you could do each and every week with that video? So, for example, you might take a video and put it on YouTube. It might also get uploaded to, Facebook, to your business page. It might get transcribed and turned into a blog post for your blog. It might get shared on LinkedIn a couple days later, and maybe you do an Instagram story about it, right? And then the beautiful thing is, if it's evergreen, you can share that video again on Facebook a few weeks later or a few months later, over and over again. So I think a lot of times we think, oh, I don't want to share the same thing more than once. I don't want to be spammy. I don't want to be annoying. But the reality is, I've often said this, like, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, let alone what I saw on Facebook. So we catch people at different times of the day. We catch people at different days. Some people are on Facebook in the morning, some in the evening, whatever. And so there's nothing wrong with posting things multiple times, spreading them out, of course, and like I said, repurposing some of that content.
Well, yeah, one of my favorite influencers now, he's been around for a long time, is Guy Kawasaki.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
He says that all the time. He goes, I'm going to do it until they complain, and then I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
And
sometimes we think, oh gosh, people are sick of this. They've seen this. And the reality is they haven't. I mean, if you start to follow anything that we do, every single video that goes out, every single podcast, that sucker gets rescheduled, repurposed. Again, over the course of a few weeks, or few months. I will say that's not our only content. When you get yourself into a content rhythm, what's great about that is you've got that consistency, and now that opens you up to do stuff in the moment. If you want to post a selfie or a funny video of your cat, or something silly with your kids, like, it's fine, because you've got this other rhythm that's going on as well. So, which is key.
well, and you know what? You just remind me, because I think that's huge, and I think that's a big point that even I'm forgetting, because right now it's a struggle for me. I've just started this 2 months ago, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like, okay, I got nothing, right? And I'm building a library, and I get that, right? Every one of these things have been 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes me, mostly with people that are way smarter than me on these situations. But it reminds me, I was in real estate still am, but I was in generate for 16 years. And one of the times, I'm a good internet lead generator, and I know how to manage that. And I was generating 10 leads a month, but that was because I had built an arsenal of things to post, where I just put them in a rhythm. So, it was 10 to 20 posts a day. And that's when I was building the leads.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing here, right? Even for all of us, if we're doing this, it's the content, but you got to start somewhere. And the first part's going to be slow. It's that domino effect you always see on those examples, right? One small domino to nail the big one up top.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing is people just give up. They give up too soon. They go down this road of creating content and they're like 3 months in and they're getting like 10 views on their videos and they're like, this sucks. I'm gonna quit. But the reality is with content, as you know, it's a snowball and you've really got to put in the effort. Sometimes it takes up to 6 months to get traction. But the beautiful thing is once it
It
starts
will.
to happen, it happens big time. And those honestly, those are the best kind of leads when people
Yep.
say things like, I see you everywhere and I
Yep.
feel like I know you. And they truly do. I mean, I get messages all the time and people just think they know me, and now it's up to me to decide if I want to work with them. And it's a really great way of doing business. I always say it's the difference between attracting business versus chasing leads.
Exactly, right? The law of attraction will always work in every part of life at all times. It
Yeah,
just depends where you want to put that energy.
absolutely.
So one of the things that you're hitting, and I can hear it in my head because I know I'm struggling with this, and I finally found a tool that so far I like, but I'll be curious for you. So I've got 6 months of material, and I don't want to spend all day saying, okay, now I got to post at noon, I got to post at 3, I got to post at 5. I don't want to worry about that because if I'm showing homes at 5, I don't want to get, sorry, Tom, I got to stop, I got to post this real quick.
Right.
So how do I manage that? I mean, are there tools you use, tools you recommend? I mean, right now, like for instance, I'm playing around with one's called Meet Edgar. I like it
Mhm.
so far. There's some things that it's missing, but so far it's satisfying the need that I have currently. But so are there tools that you like that are out there that you're using, recommending?
Yeah, I've used Meet Edgar in the past. I think that's a great tool. I ended up moving away from that also because I felt like there was kind of missing a few a
Right.
few things. Part of it depends on the platform. So for Facebook, I still like to post organically on Facebook, although I will schedule a lot of content. I love using, with Facebook, you can either use Facebook's Creator Studio or there's the
Mm-hmm.
new business suite that just came out with Facebook. And I know there's different schools of thought, but I find that I get the most traction from Facebook when I have posted or scheduled right in Facebook versus using some other tool. And I feel like I've tried so many tools over the years. So one of the things I do is typically once a week or at least a couple times a month, we'll sit down and we'll schedule out a fair amount of content using Facebook's tool to do that. And what's nice is you can always move things around. You can access it from your phone if you ever feel like, gosh,
Right.
I don't want this to go out today. I'm going to move that around. And I also don't believe in scheduling too far in advance. I think you have to be cognizant of that. And then for other platforms, I honestly have used Hootsuite for probably a decade. I feel like I've used Hootsuite
Right.
forever, and I feel like that is a tried and true platform. I love that specifically for LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm a pretty big user over on Twitter, and I know not everyone uses Twitter, but I really like to schedule some of my content through Hootsuite. I also love with Hootsuite. You can set up different search terms, and you can really kind of monitor different
Mm-hmm.
conversations, follow hashtags, and things like that. And you can also use that for Instagram. However, I like to use for Instagram, one of my favorite tools is a tool called later.com.
Yep. I'm
And I've
playing
been
with that
using
right
that.
now.
Yeah, it's a free version and then there's a paid version. And I would say most of what I post in Instagram is pretty much in the moment, although there are some things that are scheduled. And I really like Later's interface. You can save hashtags and kind of get like upload some of your content so you always have it available. They have a great app, and Later's a really nice platform, especially if sometimes it's tough to type out everything with your fingers for Instagram. So Later you can type it out on the computer, and then schedule it or have it kind of in the queue and you can post it whenever. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, those are just some of the ones I like to use. I probably should just pick one to do all things, but I haven't really found the perfect one that does everything. So that's where
Well,
I'm
and see, and that is the problem. And well, I want to have a conversation that will logically step into that next, based on what you just said. But I do think it's interesting, right? Because there is not one, and I probably will never be one perfect tool. And I don't mean for anybody. I mean just period, right?
right.
All of us have wants, and every tool operates differently. For instance, the nice thing for me, Edgar, is I like that it's there. I like that it just decides what goes out when it wants to go out. I don't got to think about it, right? I
Yeah.
love that factor. I just had to worry about the content, and now I'm done.
Yeah.
The problem is it requires me to be actively involved with Instagram, right? If
Mhm.
I'm not there plugging in it won't go. So like today, I was I was behind like 3 or 4 before I knew it.
Yep.
So
Well, and
now
that's
all
the
of a sudden
thing.
you
Every
get
platform is different,
right.
and I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard to find like sort of a one size fits all solution because every platform operates a little bit differently.
So I do think one of the things that logically comes into play at this point in time is how do I hire for this or how do I prep for this, right? That
Yeah.
becomes a really interesting question to have because as we started in the very, very beginning, authentic is one of the most important things that we have to be cognizant of with this
Yeah.
situation. But on the same token, our job as real estate professionals is to sell, right?
Yeah.
Now, you can come under the impression about what that categorized, but no matter what that is, it's always going to take us time to be in front of the client, show them homes, write the contracts, close the deals, right?
Yeah.
So we need help. How are you seeing that play out? Because what I am starting to see is more people are starting to realize that and they're starting to look at VAs more than they are starting to look at automation programs.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I don't think as an agent or broker or really anybody. I mean, I'm in the business of social media and I'm not on social media 24/7. It's not the best use of your time. So I do think that there's a balance between showing up, making sure that you're there to, that you're the one who's, online wishing people happy birthday, that you're the one commenting on pictures of your clients' kids. Like those little things, they really do make a big difference. I also think it's really important that as you, the agent, you're the one on camera, or we hear you, we see you, we get a sense of what it feels like to work with you. But to your point, I don't think for an agent they need to learn video editing. They don't need to learn like kind of all the other nuances. So yeah, I am seeing definitely a lot of agents and brokers who are going the VA route where they're hiring some VAs. I've also seen a lot of folks who are hiring very specific types of people, hiring a video editor, as an example, or a podcast editor. Sometimes just that editing piece of it
Yep.
is something that, I mean, we have a great video editor on our team. We don't need, I feel like I could do it, but it's not necessarily the best use of our time, to do that. So, yeah, I think either finding someone specifically for that niche or finding someone like a VA who could possibly do perhaps some of that editing, but also I think we want to be careful too, to make sure that when we're hiring a VA that they're really strong, especially in the English language. If they're doing any kind of hosting or scheduling, um, you know, and I think that goes back to the interview process and kind of checking to see what they've done before. I know a lot of agents and brokers will kind of give kind of during the interview process will say, well, if I I have this property or I have this video, how would you position this on social media, and kind of have them actually come back to you with a couple ideas or solutions. And I always say start people off on a trial basis too. you know Give it 30-day trial, make sure it's a good fit for them and for you. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I will add to that, just one thing that I think I'd add to that in the conversation is there's not a ton of real estate social media professionals, right? There are
Mhm.
very few that understand the intricacies of what our rules are, what our ethics are, all that stuff out there.
Yeah.
So if you are going to hire outside, the biggest thing I'm going to recommend is yes to everything Katie said, plus make sure you have the rules of the road written down of what they can and cannot do because no matter what, two things fall into place. One, they represent your word, and worse, they represent your brokerage words.
Yeah.
So
Very
please
good point.
always just make sure that they understand that they can't get too narrowed down in their marketing. They can't say certain verbiage, right? Because
Right.
that's where I'm seeing the flaws with hiring outside is it does save them time and they're better at it, but they missed a point because they didn't have to worry about this with the 10 other people they've been working with for the last year and a half.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And every market is different, every area is different. So, getting those kind of parameters in place. I know there's some agents who have to, list their DRE number, and other areas don't require that. Then there's, certain things we want to be cognizant of for fair housing and that we're not violating some of those things. And so, yeah, and I think in general, it's a good exercise to go through, even if you don't hire someone or not, just to kind of go have an exercise of like these are sort of the do's and don'ts, and keeping these things in mind when you're doing social media in general.
Yeah. When I coach and consult people, that's the first thing I tell them: have the rules of the road written out, because worst case scenario, you got to follow them yourself anyway. So at least you know what's going on, right? It's
Exactly.
easy enough to do.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. So let's see. I just went blank. I was going to ask you something else here. I always love these conversations. I get awesome on this. So let me ask you this. We've kind of hit on this, but I really want to go into this. How's the best way to manage our time with this? I know we've kind of talked about this, but I'll be honest with you. This is my biggest struggle with this stuff, right? I'm trying to build classes. I'm trying to work with people. Same problems everybody else is having. We got 5 hours in, and we're trying to fit 10 hours into that material.
Yes. Well, gosh, this could probably be a whole
Right.
conversation, just this, right? I mean, I think the biggest thing for me that's made a big difference is time blocking. And I try to do this with a lot of areas of our business, but especially with social media. One of the things we recommend is set aside at least a little bit of time every day, like could be 15, 20 minutes a day. I personally like to do this in the morning before I open up email because email is like a black hole I never get out of. So typically every morning I'll spend 15 or 20 minutes. I've got my cup of coffee. And the goal during that time is to go through my feeds, to respond to all my notifications, and to connect with people. And I really believe in this idea of focus five, where every day I think about, are there five people I can intentionally connect with? Not just be like a drive-by liker, not just jump in and like a bunch of stuff, but actually like comment and engage with people and leave a meaningful comment, not just great pick, but maybe use their name and ask a question and just be a little bit more engaging. So I try to do that on a daily basis. And I think it comes back to being really intentional. It's really easy to kind of get sucked into a lot of the noise on social media. So I would say being intentional, time blocking, that's one of the big things. And then I would say time blocking on a weekly basis. I like to set aside around 30 to 60 minutes once a week where I'm going to schedule some of the content. I'm going to look to the week ahead. I'm going to see, what type of content could we repurpose, what's coming up, what types of posts could we get scheduled. And then typically once a month is where I'll sit down and block out a few hours to do some batching, where I'll sit down and record 4 or 5 podcasts, or I'll record 4 or 5 videos or more all in one sitting. So it's sort of this idea of like daily, weekly, monthly. And I don't know, I just find that if it's not in the schedule, it just doesn't happen. There's always something else that happens. And then as a bonus thing, I would say to that too is really try to treat your business almost like a media company. We have an editorial calendar of our content, which is a really fancy word for saying we have a spreadsheet, basically. And it's a Google document with all of our topics. And so we do this at the end of the year. I'm in the process of doing this right now with our team, where we're saying, let's put together our calendar. And so when I do sit down once a month to batch, all I have to do is open up my spreadsheet and go, okay, well, what are the 4 topics I'm going to talk about this month? Great. And this is where that timeless and evergreen content is really relevant, because I can just look at that and go, great, I'm going to talk about this. Let's go shoot those videos. And yes, periodically we might move things around and go, you know what, it's more relevant if I talk about this versus that. But just getting you know, a plan together versus kind of like flying by the seat of your pants, which a lot of
Well,
people
the
kind of
nice
operate.
Right, and the nice thing about batching is if you do need to change the order, that's easy, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's depending on the program you're using, the product you're using, it's quite literally just flipping the dates, right? I mean, it's really all it is.
exactly.
It becomes, I just think, too easy. So I do love that, and I do think it's one of the biggest tricks, because I know for me, and I know for a lot of things I've done in the past, and I'm sure it's for most people, is you feel stressed when you're trying to figure out next week every time it comes around, right? Okay,
Yes.
it's Friday. I got to get ready for Monday. I don't know what to say. I'm stressed.
Yeah.
But when you have 20 in the bag and you're going, okay, now I just got to think ahead. I don't know why, but at least for me, the pressure, I mean, I don't have any weight on my shoulders. I feel like I can just get creative. I can throw weird things out there and see how they
Yes.
go, because, I can delete it if it doesn't work because I got 20 in the bag.
Exactly. And I think just getting yourself into a routine, I mean, for me, that's been huge. And, for us, we have a new video that comes out every Wednesday, and we have our podcast that comes out every Friday. And people always say, "Well, what's the best day?" I mean, the best day is whatever's the best day
Your
for
day.
you, honestly. And the fact that we say that publicly, that we have a new video that comes out every Wednesday and a new podcast every Friday, first of all, that's like the best accountability.
Yep.
And second of all, it's just like anything else. It just becomes a habit. It's just become part of your business, just like any other part of your business, versus like, oh, when I have time, I'll squeeze this in. It's just get yourself into a habit.
Yeah, it's stressful, I tell you.
Yeah.
It's weird. Now, with that, I think the natural progression, because this is where the trends are going. And I'll be honest with you, I was talking. I don't know if you met him or not, but I was talking with, what is it, Monday? So it had to be Friday. I was talking with Jeremiah J. Man Monero last week, and he's a millennial, and I'm the Xer, right? So I'm technically the old guy on the digital block.
Hey, I'm a Gen Xer too, so I'm right there with you.
So I love this. I love what is considered today the long form content. I think it's great. I think it's easy to watch for the most part. And in a podcast form, it's easy to listen to.
Yeah.
But the reality is, at least what I'm seeing, and I'm frustrated by it, but it's what it is everything is transitioning because, quote unquote, our attention span is minute. So we're all going to micro content. What's your feel on that? And is there a place? Well, first question: is there a place for both words? What's your feel on it? And do you think there's a place for both?
So I definitely think there's a place for both. And I definitely have seen this trend of micro content. I think a big reason for that was like the huge success we've seen with TikTok and how many people are active on TikTok. It's like this quick, fun, creative content. And now we see Instagram Reels, which is, basically kind of a copycat in some ways of TikTok. And I think there's a place for both. I think part of it kind of depends on who your target audience is and who you're trying to reach. And ultimately, I think that's what you got to think about when you think about your content, when you think about what platform to be on. I mean, TikTok's a great example. TikTok's super fun, but I would say for me, generally speaking, a big portion of my audience isn't on TikTok. So I have to weigh, is it valuable for me to spend that kind of time on there? Now, that doesn't mean I can't learn from it and can't, explore it, maybe have a little, learn a little bit more of that creativity piece of it. But I think it comes down to, where your client's hanging out.
Right.
And, again, I think part of that's just sort of demographic. But I do think that that short form content, I don't think that's necessarily going away. We're seeing stories are, kind of exploding. Instagram stories are huge. Facebook has stories now. I mean, now LinkedIn has stories. Twitter has stories, which is kind of crazy to me. And so we're seeing this kind of quick content. And I honestly think they can both exist. We use kind of stories as a way to kind of show the behind the scenes and to drive traffic to some of our longer form videos or podcasts. And same thing with reels. If you go to my Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram. We've been having fun publishing some reels content, but most of that content was inspired from a video I did a few months ago or a podcast I did. Like, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just the wrapping paper looks a little bit different, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, and it does. I mean, the way I look at it is, Gary Vaynerchuk. I really like watching him. If you hear that name, folks, and you listen to this afterwards, I would say if you have sensitive ears, don't listen to him. He's good wealth of information, but his vocabulary is rough.
He
But
tells it
all
like it
he's doing, he's a good New Yorker. I mean, that's what it comes out to being. But what he does, which I think is kind of interesting, but again, always prove that there's always a way for everybody. There's not one proven formula. Is all his long form, he's just taking his quotable chunks and putting it out there, right?
Yeah.
That's all he's doing. He's not recreating. I mean, he does a little bit here and there, but he's not really recreating too much. He's just saying, okay, you know what, this was a good quote. Someone was interviewing. Let's put that out there. There's my snippet for the day.
Yeah.
So I think there's always some things for that as well. That's what I'm working on personally, is just microing my macro. That's really
Yeah.
all I'm doing.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, just repurposing,
Right.
that content. And there are, and that's where I think it could make sense to bring on a VA or someone who could help with some of that. When you have this content to say, yeah, let's pull out, 3 quotes for every video that we do, or, whatever it might be. And I think it goes back to like working smarter, not just harder.
Well, and that's just it. Like, some of that stuff won't come from me anytime in the near future because I'm a one-man band at this particular point, but I am setting things up in place, right? So one of my favorite tools is otter.ai, which is a transcription tool. I put the audio in there and it just transcribes, and it transcribes perfectly,
Yeah.
right? This conversation will go in there, and then all I got to do where it says guest is put your name in there, and it's going to know every time you spoke. And I go find all the Katie gems and let's put them out there.
That's great.
So I can do that. And actually, there's new AIs out there that are even crazier, where you can it'll do it for you automatically, and it will actually take out all the words we're not supposed to. Toastmasters don't do so, ums, and us, right?
Yes.
So it's actually pretty cool. But I do think micro content's easier. I struggle with it personally. I'd rather do this all day long, but I get where we're at, and it's how we do things. And you just mentioned it, and that's where I was going to lead to the next question. How do we do that? Because again, we just by making macro into micro or making an additional micro, we have just now added an hour to our day. I'm just making numbers up, but
Right, right.
that's what the realtors are. That's what we're thinking as real estate professionals. I don't got time for this. Now you're asking me to do more.
Yeah.
You mentioned one, have an assistant. I do think that's huge. Do you have tools out there that are kind of helping with that? Is there anything? I haven't seen anything. I'm just curious if you've seen anything that might do that.
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Canva. I've used
Yeah.
Canva for years and years, and I what I love about Canva, especially the pro version, is that you can have your fonts and your colors and everything sort of laid in there really easily. You can create templates, which I think really assist with some of the stuff that we're talking about, here today, of just being able to kind of churn out content, quickly and not always feeling like you're reinventing the wheel. you know
Right.
and that I think helps with just brand consistency also, and especially if you do bring someone else on, to have that kind of system in place. So if your brand colors are red, white, and blue, you don't want them to suddenly start using pink polka dots or you know some sort of crazy font. I find that makes a big difference. I agree with you. Getting things transcribed. We have been using Rev.com for a long
Oh
time,
yeah. 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 Yeah.
and Rev is great. Probably really similar to the tool you're using, where we can get our videos transcribed. I think subtitles are really important for videos. Most
Yeah.
of us never turn the sound on a video, so Rev has a feature where you can order subtitles and upload those. They can also burn them into the video, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is really cool, especially for like Instagram. That's really awesome. We get a lot of our videos transcribed, and we'll turn those into blog posts, like you mentioned. Also, that's really great for any agents who, not just repurposing content, but there's a lot of agents we know that speak multiple languages. If you speak, a couple languages and you serve those audiences, getting some of your content translated can definitely make a big difference. So,
Oh,
those are
that's
a
a good
couple
point.
things. The other thing I was going to mention real quick that we also use is Asana.
Oh yeah.
Asana is a great project management tool, and not just for social media, but just kind of in general. This idea of getting yourself organized, and because with everything we're talking about, it's not just, oh, just do more video. Like, that's not, it's like, okay, when are you going to shoot the video? When's it going to get published? Where's it going to get published? Like, there's this laundry list of things that have to happen. And so using a tool like Asana, which is a free project management tool, that's been a great resource for us.
Yeah, and I do like Asana. There's tons of them. Asana is probably one of the better ones out there currently. And the thing I like about Asana is they've actually worked pretty good of integrating with other packages. So if you wanted to work with your email or other things, it's integrating really pretty well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I don't want to kill all your time today, although I could talk to hours. But I do want to end on this. One, I'll let you plug at the very end. But two, let's just tell the group here, because we went somewhat deep on some of these things, but we got a lot of stuff out. So if I was to sit there and I listen to this, what do you say should be the top 3 things to take away for getting ready for 2021 socially? Get social smart. What should we be doing? Let's just say the top 3 things.
Top 3 things. Well, I could probably
If you
say
want to go
all
to 5,
3.
I'm not going to shoot you in.
That's okay. I mean, I think really one of the top ones, which we touched on a little bit, is just get yourself into a system, get yourself into a routine. Again, whether it's 10 or 15 minutes a day to start, you've got to get yourself into some sort of routine. I know that seems really basic, especially if you've been on social media a while, but it's really important. I mentioned the whole idea of Focus 5. I do that religiously every day, and I do that on Facebook. I do that on Instagram. I do that on LinkedIn, and I would also encourage people who are a little bit more advanced, take it a step further, and maybe it's not just Focus 5, maybe it's Focus 10, but taking the time to be really intentional with people. Um, I think the second thing would be to think about a content strategy, not just a social media strategy. So thinking about things like we talked about earlier, thinking about topics you get asked all the time, you know, set yourself up for success. Get your editorial calendar in place. Having a sense of what you're going to talk about, I think, is really, really important. And if you've never done that before, like I said, think about the questions you get asked all the time. Think about topics of conversation that come up. And you might even look in your email and your sent email. What are the emails that you're sending, time and time again? A lot of times that can give you some inspiration. And then probably the third thing, which kind of, I guess, ties those two things together, is I would say get yourself into a routine with that distribution. You know, Um, if you can create a show like you're doing here, there's something to be said about a show, versus just video every Monday or video every once in a blue moon. I think the fact for us, we have the Get Social Smart show. It's been coming out basically for about 4 years, and I think we're on episode 20 something, 205 or something. So what happens is when people go and they start watching our videos, when they realize we're on episode 200, if they really like what I have to say, they're like, wait a minute, I got to catch up, right? And there's something to be said about creating some episodic content. It gives yourself some accountability. You'll get more people to watch more of your content. It's just like when we discover a new, television series and we realize, oh my gosh, this is season 2. Hold on, I got to catch up. So
Where's it on Netflix?
yeah, exactly. Is it on Netflix? I got to go back. And that's, I think, the difference between just like putting out content for the sake of content versus like just getting yourself into a routine. Gary Vaynerchuk's a great example. He always says, treat your company like a media company. I've also heard him say, be the digital mayor of your town. And like, how do you do that? You got to get yourself into a routine. Uh, you know, and I would also say, as a kind of, I guess, a bonus thing is look at your life as content. As you're just doing your job, there's lots of opportunities to, post, not even post things, but just take a quick little video, take a quick little picture. You may not post it right then and there, but you're 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 out and about. You're at a home inspection. You're at an open house. You're meeting with a client. Like capturing some of these things, they can be great inspiration for content and for posts later on.
Yeah, and I want to echo that last thing because I'm a John Maxwell trainer, speaker, and coach, and there were a great mentor of mine, Roddy Galbraith, is a great guy, and one of the things he taught us as a speaker is to collect stories. And he goes, "You have stories the rest of your life. You have them from beginning to end. You're going to have them."
Yeah.
And he also said, "And right now, since I asked you to do it, you're not going to think of one." And I'm going, "Yep, I got no stories."
Right.
And he goes, "All stories relate. All of them relate." And darn it if he isn't right, right? It's frustrating. It's like, no, you're wrong. And he's right. Some of the dumbest stories I'm using these days, because now that I'm forcing myself to think about it in that way, I'm thinking all these stories. And now I have analogies that people can understand and come through inside of life that I can give life to, right? I can give a training example and give life to that training example.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing that you're saying, Katie, with just treat yourself like a media company and treat everything out there as an experience. Take those pictures, have that out there. Whether you use it today or not is content sometime.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. And I would also say, just start now. Like we all kind of suffer from analysis paralysis. And I really believe in this idea of like done is better than perfect. Like you may not have it, maybe you don't want to edit your videos when you first start. I didn't edit my videos for a long time. Like just start, like get it out there. And I love your point about stories. I totally agree with you. I think that's especially for someone who's maybe a little bit more advanced, and anyone listening who's putting out content, I would challenge you to say, well, how do you step up your content? It's not just
right.
facts. It's add in your personality, add in an analogy, add in a story, highlight somebody else. Like it's that extra layer that makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, huge, absolutely huge. And I love that you ended on that because I think that's one of the biggest things that we all struggle with is we don't know what to say, and it's not true, right? We
Yeah.
just get nerved up. We just get
Yeah.
sometimes a little too laser focused and a little too, as Marquis Lemons would say, we got to let our ego go. We got to put our ego
Yeah.
to the door.
Yeah.
Right. And it's tough, right? That's not a judgment. It's just a fact of life. I was saying I was going to do a podcast for 3 years. It took a pandemic to say, okay, let's do it.
Yep. I
My,
get
my,
that.
my ego had nothing to do with it anymore. It's survivor, it's die or survive. So
Yep. Well, and what you're doing, the fact that you're highlighting other people, I mean, that's a great example of like walking the walk and talking the talk. And for anyone listening, if you're feeling like, gosh, am I think a lot of us sometimes suffer from like, that sort of imposter syndrome. Like, who am I? Who am I to put out a show? Who am I to do this or do that? And if you've ever felt that way, I can tell you from experience that it's really powerful when you can highlight other people, when you can bring on guests, like you're doing, Justin, for an agent or broker. Gosh, especially right now with everything going on in the world, there's small businesses who are really hurting, businesses that we love. And what a great opportunity. Maybe reach out, say, hey, can we hop on a Zoom? I would love to highlight you and interview you. Tell me all about your business. So, we'll do a promotion, whatever. And that's
yeah.
a win-win for everybody.
And I love that because that's one of the biggest things I tell most people, because I just got done teaching how to do video in 3 short weeks, right? And the one thing I said is you have a town full of interviews. You have
Absolutely.
over a year's worth of material.
Yeah, and you don't have to do them in person. I mean, that's
Right.
with technology. You could do Zoom, you could do StreamYard like we're doing right now. I mean, there's so many easy opportunities to just, hop on a video and do a split screen, interview and
And
ask people about to talk about their business and what they do.
right. And it takes about, it could take an hour of research if you wanted to get really deep, but really it probably takes 15 to 20 minutes of just researching them, maybe doing a preparatory phone call, just asking a couple quick questions, and then you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going into an industry you don't know about. But
No.
so I love that. Again, I promised you 40. We're a little over that, and I apologize for that.
That's all right. It was a fun
So
conversation.
plug away. This is your chance again. It's not about me, it's about you, and it's about the audience. So where do they find you? What should they look for? How should they interact with you? Is there anything else going on? Courses, whatever. It's your turn.
Oh, well, thank you. I would say that, the biggest thing, I mean, if we're not yet connected, the best way to find me is just go to my website, katielance.com, sign up for our email newsletter. We have hundreds of free resources. We're always sharing really helpful tips and information and nuggets, each and every week. And we also have our academy, which is the Get Social Smart Academy we developed a few years ago. And so for those of you who are really ready to take things to the next level, we'd love for you to check that out. You can just go to katielance.com/academy. We have some fun end of year specials and end of year, fun things going on over there also. And then just lastly, just connect with me on social media. If you're listening to this and this really resonated with you, I'm at Katie Lance basically everywhere on social media. This could be a piece of content. Take out your phone, do a little selfie, tag me, tag Justin, and let us know that you listened. And I would love to connect with you over there.
Well, awesome. I really do appreciate it. If there's anything else you want to share it now. Anything that we missed, because again, I'm always going to forget something, but I could talk to everybody for hours. But I'm so glad you came, and
Thank you so much.
I'll get you again, because there's one topic we totally ignored right now, but I believe it's something that, this is a teaser, folks, is what it's called. I saw you just post yesterday or today, I don't know, it was recently on LinkedIn, and it's a big thorn in my pocket on how I watch realtors use that tool. So.
Well, we'll have to talk about it next time. I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Katie.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Okay.